Hey, welcome to Messiah Nation. We're glad you're joining us. Thank you guys so much for supporting the channel. We are back with our Wednesday Whys. We are still talking about the Sinai covenant or the Ketubah. We talked about this for the last several installments of the Wednesday Why series. We talked about how covenants are important. You had the covenant with Abram, the covenant with where his name got changed to Abraham, the covenant with Noah, the covenant with David. You have all these different covenants in Scripture, but we find out that probably one of the coolest pictures of our covenant is the covenant of marriage. It's one of the coolest shadows that we have. Jeremiah 31 says, "I was." Talking about verse 32, talking about this covenant, says, not like the covenant which I made with their fathers in the days I took them by the hand to bring them out of the land of Egypt, my covenant which they broke, although I was a husband to them, declares the Lord. So we see here again, just reviewing, he calls himself a husband to them, and he says they broke the covenant. All right, so we've got all these pieces coming together. If you want to hear more about that, you can go to our Was God Divorced? Lost Christian Heritage series and check that one out. But basically what we're doing is we're seeing that this relationship was established like a marriage, okay, with the nation of Israel. So we're going to pick up again in Exodus 20. We see that these verses not only apply to our relationship with the Father, but also they have a context of a relationship in marriage and our relationships with others. So Exodus 20, verse 7, you shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain, for the Lord will not leave him unpunished who takes his name in vain. And then verse 8, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is a Sabbath of the Lord your God. In it you shall not do any work, you or your son or your daughter, or your male or female servant, or your cattle, or your sojourner who stays with you. For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth, the sea and all that is in them, and rested on the seventh day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and made it holy. So the first commandment that we see here, again, we're the ones that translated this commandment, okay? In the Hebrew, it actually says the 10 words. We hear that these are the instructions of the Father. These are his ways, right? So he says not to take the name of the Lord in vain. Now, I know what a lot of us think that means, okay? And it's being angry and saying certain words or doing these kind of things, but that's not really what this means at all. As a matter of fact, the word vain in this context literally means to nullify, to change, or to make common. Okay. That's what it means to take the name of the Lord in vain. Have we made his name common? Have we made his name, nullified his name, or have we changed his name in a way that it is not consistent with his character, right? So that's what this means. Now, again, we are applying this to the fact that this is a marriage covenant that he is giving to us here in these 10 words. All right. There was a proposal of marriage. There was an acceptance of marriage by the nation of Israel. And now these are the terms of the covenant of marriage for us to be one with him that Israel broke, right? So the question is, do we ever change terms of the covenant, nullify, or make them common? Okay. Now remember, first of all, this is applying to our relationship with the Father, no question, right? But this can also apply to our relationships with one another. Do we ever change? We agreed to terms when we got married, right? Mary and I, when we said our I do's, there were certain expectations on both sides. I'll be honest and say, man, I've broken a lot of the terms of that covenant. I have nullified and made common some of those things, and that should not be the case, right? That should be an institution and a relationship that I hold in the highest regard. And I do my best, right? I'm not perfect, okay? And I fall short. But is my aim, is my focus to try to live up to what it what the name of this covenant, the name of this marriage, right? The name of this relationship and the terms of this relationship. Am I trying to live up to the expectations that I did set and agree to, right? Or are we changing terms of the covenant? And if we're honest, we can say that there are many times that I said, Mary, this is what I'll do, or husband or wife, this is what I'll do. And seasons of life change, things change, jobs change, whatever changes, and we have not fulfilled those things that we said we would be faithful to. And so we need to revisit that and change our behavior so that we are honoring our promises, right? And even more importantly than marriage, we need to do the same thing in our relationship with the Father, right? Are we, or have we changed terms of the covenant that he established here in Exodus 20, or have we nullified them or made them common? All right. Now, when you think of that definition and then you travel over to Matthew chapter 5, it makes a ton more sense in context here. Listen to what Matthew 5 says. Do not think that I have come to abolish the law or the prophets. Let's change that just a little bit, okay? Do not think that I came to change the terms of the covenant. All right? That's what it says there. I did not come to abolish, but to fulfill. For truly I say to you, okay, so stop right there for a second. If you're going to fulfill the terms of the covenant, does that mean that you're going to take them away? All right. Does that mean, okay, I did all these things that I told my wife I would do. Now we're finished. Absolutely not. It's a continual fulfillment, right? It's a fulfillment so that covenant can be established and continue to be established. It doesn't mean you throw something away or nullify it or make it or change it, right? Or make it common. Those are the things we don't do with the covenant, right? So it says, for truly I say to you, until heaven and earth pass away. Well, that surely hasn't happened. Not the smallest letter or stroke shall pass from the law until all is accomplished. Well, all has not been accomplished either. Whoever then annuls one of the least of these commandments, okay, or what brings them to nothing, nullifies, that's the same word we just talked about, making it vain, right? Whoever then annuls one of the least of these commandments and teaches others to do the same shall be called least in the kingdom of heaven. But whoever keeps and teaches them, he shall be called great in the kingdom of heaven. So we have to ask that question again. Are we nullifying or changing or making common the terms of the covenant, the name of God, because God put his name in this covenant, right? Or are we upholding these things? Yeshua said he has no intention of changing or nullifying the covenant until heaven and earth pass away and everything that's written in the prophets and in the law has been fulfilled, which has not taken place yet, right? So we need to have that same sort of, in the same way that Yeshua had this great statement of how he did not come to do anything but fulfill the terms of the covenant which he had promised and his Father had promised. We, in the same way, in our relationships, need to have that sort of resolve to make sure that we say we are here to confirm and uphold the terms of our covenant with one another. All right. Okay, moving on. The second one there, that one's good. Remember and keep holy, set apart, right? We're talking about, in context, we're talking about the Sabbath, the Shabbat, okay? Which we see as Saturday, right? Now, here's the thing. Have we changed the terms of the covenant? Well, the Catholic Church did. The Catholic Church has now said there is the Lord's Day, which is Sunday. They have changed the set apart day to Sunday, the day of worship to Sunday. Um, no surprise there, because Sunday is literally named after the sun god, and really that's what the Catholic Church is all built around. All right, it's not worship of Yahweh, YHWH, the king, the God above all gods, the Most High, right? Their worship is of Apollyon, right, or the sun god. There's a false worship going on there. That's why you'll see in their paintings and in their drawings, there's always a halo or a sun behind the sun, behind paintings of Jesus or Mary or whoever else they're worshiping, right? Um, that is not a pure form of what is written down in our book. This very clearly tells us to remember the seventh day, to set it aside, to keep it holy. And that is something that we should not change the terms of the covenant, right? He even tells us how to set it apart, not doing any work, not making anybody else do any work. We're supposed to be, in other portions, we're supposed to be coming together and celebrating that day, right? These are pretty important things, right? And it's the same in our ketubah. All right. I want you to think about something. We understand that being a professional or mastering something, there's a saying in our culture that to be an expert or to have an expertise in something takes about 10,000 hours of practice. Okay. You want to be good at playing the violin or, computer coding or whatever it is you want to be good at. It's going to take 10,000 hours to master something. Now, again, you're not going to learn everything, but you're going to be pretty proficient. You're going to be an expert on a lot of levels. Okay, here's my question to you. Do we treat our relationships this way? Do we set aside time to study our spouse, to become an expert in our marriage, right? Or is it just, oh, well, I'm married every day and it's just kind of on the back burner? Well, let me say this to you. Let's say we threw this expectation that God has for us in his ketubah or his marriage covenant, and we had one day a week that we honor him, right? We set everything else aside. We honor him. We don't work. We don't make anybody else work. That this is our day set aside to worship him, to honor him, to make holy that day because he made holy that day. Let's say we did that every week. We adopted that in our marriage, and we decided, you know what, one day every single week, we're going to go on a date for 3 hours, and it's going to be nothing but us learning one another, spending time for one another, setting apart one another. Do you know, in order for us to get to 10,000 hours, it's going to take us this long, 64 years. So you're not even going to be an expert in your marriage if you're only devoting 3 hours a day to 3 hours a week to your spouse. Man, that's only, you're only going to get so much out of that, right? I mean, now I'm not saying you quit your job and just, master one another. Although in the Hebrew culture, for the first year, they wouldn't work. They would stay together. They would spend time together. They would learn one another. There are cultures that still do this, right? Maybe not a full year, but there are long time periods where they learn about one another. They learn to live together. They study their spouse. And we don't do that in our culture. All right. Instead, we decide to go on a honeymoon and just travel around and create more stress for each other, right? Instead of learning to appreciate one another, we tend to have a culture that's just all about stuff and travel and everything else, and we ignore the relationship side of this, and that's what a covenant is. These are terms of the covenant. All the Father asks is for one day for us to make it holy. Let's say we actually did that. Let's say you and I actually honored the Shabbat, honored the Sabbath, and we set aside Saturday every single week and we studied the word and we got together with other believers. Let's say that we spent 8 hours every single day, every single week, 8 hours, one day a week, just setting that time aside for the Father and spending that time studying and learning about God. Do you know that it would still take 24 years for us to become an expert in our faith? This is what's crazy to me, because you have people that say, "Oh man, I just don't believe that." Yeah, I've studied all about Christianity. I've studied all about the faith, the Bible and all this stuff, and yeah, I just don't believe that. Really? Did you study for 24 years? Because I don't think you did. Right? And the reality is we give up on things because we don't have this attitude. We haven't set aside that relationship this way, where I say, I'm going to study my wife every single week. I'm going to set aside time to have those conversations where we are talking about real things, her needs, her feelings, her perspectives, everything that's really important. Now, I'll tell you right off the bat, okay, that is not my strong suit. All right. But it's something I need to commit to. It's something that I need to give time to. And in the same way, we've got to do that for the Lord. We've got to do that in our relationship with the Father. In that same sermon where Yeshua talks about him not coming to nullify any of the terms of the covenant, he also says in verse 33, again, you have heard it said, you have heard that the ancients were told, you shall not make false vows, but shall fulfill your vows to the Lord. But I say to you, make no oath at all, either by heaven, for it is the throne of God, or by the earth, for it is his footstool, or by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great king. Nor shall you make an oath by your head, for you cannot make one hair white or black. Verse 37, but let your statements be yes means yes, or no means no. Anything else beyond that is evil, right? So this is really where we are. We need to make sure that when we say we're going to do something, when we agree to the terms of the covenant, that we let our yes be yes and our no be no, and that we fulfill the vows to the Lord. He wasn't saying that we shouldn't fulfill the vows to the Lord. He was just saying that we shouldn't swear by things. We should just let our yes be yes and our no be no. Here's the point, I think, of this week's 2 commandments or 2 points of the ketubah that we're looking at. I think this is really the key in Matthew chapter 7. Ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find. Knock and it will be open to you. For everyone who asks receives, and he who seeks finds, and him who knocks it will be open. The reality is, if in our relationship with our spouse, we'll ask the questions, we'll seek to understand, and we'll continue to knock on the doors of their heart, of their lives, and allow those doors to be open to us, we will find success in our relationship with our spouse. And it obviously, the same goes in even a greater way with the Most High, right? If we continue to ask the right questions, we continue to seek in his word and in his commandments and in his Torah to find the truth, and we knock on the door, he said he would be faithful to answer, right? And that's what we're talking about this week. These are the points, right? Number 1, that we shouldn't make any terms of the covenant. We shouldn't take any terms in vain. Excuse me. Not taking in vain any of the terms of the covenant, not taking in the name of the Lord in vain, because he is putting his name into these covenants, right? That's why we don't take them in vain. We don't take them lightly. We don't, what did it say? We don't change, we don't nullify, and we don't make it common. Marriage is not a common thing. This ketubah with the Father is not a common thing. It's not something we should just throw around. Oh, well, the Lord told me this, the Lord told me that. No, these are serious commitments. Let's let our yes be yes, our no be no. And let's remember and keep holy and set apart this relationship. Number 1, obviously, with Yahweh, but also let's set aside our relationships with our spouse. Amen. God bless you guys. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.